Let's see how to use the Texas Instruments 30X2S calculator in scientific notation. I like this calculator. It's easy to use. It's also not real expensive. It's a nice combination. Let's enter Avogadro's number into it, just so we can see how to enter scientific notation into it. We'll do that first. So you put in 6.0221, and then for scientific notation, you have to press the blue second key. Think of that like a shift key or a caps lock key, because when you push that, then any other button uses the blue function. If you look at the calculator, you'll see there are a lot of blue functions above most of the buttons, and those are accessed by hitting the second key. Then you see the reciprocal key. Well, right above that, that's EE. EE is exponential notation or scientific notation. Now, since Avogadro's number is 6.0221 times 10 to the 23rd, EE stands for times 10. And then you press the 23. If you look at this screen, what you'll see is this. On the screen display, the top left, that's what I entered, 6.0221E23. And then on the bottom right, that's what happened after I pressed the enter key. On this calculator, the enter key is associated with the equals key. And then what it does is it shows 6.0221 times 10 raised to the 23rd power. So scientific notation and the EE key go together. Do not press the multiplication key and then do the 10 raised to some power key. It's going to get you in trouble, especially when you do certain kinds of division. So remember, scientific notation is the EE key on this calculator. This calculator, it's pretty easy to move the display in and out of scientific notation, which can be useful. So let's take the number 0.00789, and then if I enter that number and then press the enter key, you see it says 0.00789. Well, for scientific notation, and it is to flip the display, I'll press the second key again, and then the button right next to that. You see it says psi/ENG. That allows you to change the way the number is shown in the display. So as soon as you press second and then that psi/ENG button, in the display you see three options. You see flow, psi, and ENG. That means floating notation, or sometimes called standard notation. The next one is scientific notation, and the one on the right is engineering notation. So let's just ignore engineering notation. We're not going to use that. We'll focus on floating notation and scientific notation. The floating or standard notation is the way it is right now, 0.00789. Now there are times where you might want to flip the display into scientific notation. So then what you do is you press the arrow button, that's the right arrow button. And what will happen is it'll go from underlining the floating, I'm going to go to another screen here, and it'll underline psi instead. Now, if you leave it like that, that means that it will display numbers in scientific notation. So to get this to take, I press the enter key, and then if we look back at the original information, remember it was 0.00789, that's what I entered, and previously to the lower right it said 0.00789, but now look, it says 7.89 times 10 to the minus 3. So this can be real useful. Take a number in floating notation, put it in scientific notation. You could also take a number in scientific notation and move it into floating notation. You'd, instead of selecting psi like it is on the top, you'd select flow for floating. Now, a number that is really, really big, like Avogadro's number, you won't be able to display that in floating notation on this calculator. It's too many digits. Just like if you had a number that was 6 times 10 to the minus 23rd, you wouldn't be able to display that in floating notation on this calculator because it won't show enough digits. So as long as the number is not really big or really small, and you'll kind of have to experiment with it so you can get a feel for yourself how many digits you're allowed to keep, you can flip it back and forth.